Oh, I want to welcome you to the YouTube channel today. I'm in the land of Israel, and I want to share with you a prophetic message. And for those of you that are prophetic students, you follow biblical prophecy, you understand some of the scripture, maybe you've never heard about this before, and perhaps you've heard about this and you've questioned this, so let me say it to you this way. When you begin to read the book of Revelation, you begin to see in the early part of the 7-year tribulation, the first 42 months, the first 3.5 years, that they show in the scripture how there will be 12,000 men from the 12 tribes of Israel that are going to be sealed with the seal of God. Now, the first question that you have when you read that in the book of Revelation, which is written in 95 AD, is how do men in Israel, or how would people in Israel know what tribe they're with? Because the 12 tribes are called the 12 lost tribes, and they were scattered according to the book of James. The answer is that in rabbinical literature, but especially in the Bible, Elijah the prophet will come at the end of days, and Elijah the prophet will be able to tell the Jewish men which tribe they're with. That's a teaching that exists in Judaism. So we'll leave that alone for now, but focus on what it says, because if you read in the book of Revelation, if there's 12,000 from Benjamin, 12,000 from Judah, 12,000, scholars have noted, and early church fathers noted, that Dan is missing. And Dan is one of the sons of Jacob. And he's one of the men that formed one of the 12 tribes of Israel in the early days when the nation of Israel existed in 12 tribes and when Joshua took the promised land. Now, so let's get into the mystery real quick. We won't be long with this, but let me share a couple things with you. First of all, concerning Dan. Now, in the scripture, it does tell you that Dan was one of the first tribes to sin with idolatry. If you'll remember reading the Bible, it tells you that Dan built a golden calf and they went a-whoring, which means they went into idolatry with the worship of the golden calf. The second thing you have to keep in mind is that Dan's original land allotment was down in southern Israel, more central Israel to southern Israel, in the area of Beersheba. However, there was a time that came in history, and this is recorded in your scripture, where the men of the tribe of Dan came up into this territory to an area, a city called Lachish, and they conquered that city. There were 600 of them, and they established their new location in this area, and they named it after their father. This is in, I think it's in the book of Joshua, but it's in the scripture. So they named this area Dan, and it became known as the area of Dan, and the Bible would talk about from Dan to Beersheba. Beersheba is where, and again it's in southern Israel in the desert, but that is where the original area of Dan was. But now the city of Dan was located in this area here that we're now in. The situation about why is Dan missing in the apocalyptic vision has been a mystery for quite some time. Some suggest that they were the first tribe to cause Israel to come into idolatry, and that's why they're missing. I want to give you another reason why. If you look at Judea, you look at Bethlehem, you look at Tel Aviv, you look at Joppa, you look at all these cities in Israel where the other tribal members were given, whether it's Simeon or Levi or Judah or Benjamin or Naphtali or Gad, there's a big population in those areas. There's thousands of people, tens of thousands of people. But I want you to look at the territory of Dan. Now just look with me. I want you to see how many places do you see? Do you see any cities? Now these are Israeli cities. That right there is not a Jewish town. That's an Arab village up on the hill. Up there's Nimrod's fortress. But there's nobody hardly living up here. Now, there are some Jewish settlements, small Jewish settlements, but where are the 12,000 connected to the tribe of Dan in this area? One of the things that I suggest, and this is a suggestion, as to why Dan is missing is because everywhere else in Israel, where the other tribal men are alluded to in the book of Revelation, where there will be 12,000 men coming from those particular tribes, there is a population of people who live in those areas. You can find at least 12,000 men. However, in this territory that became the territory of Dan, in this area, again, look around, you just don't see. And this, we've driven up here. It extends way into the mountains. It extends over that mountain. It extends the territory we're talking about tribe of Dan. It extends all through here, back through here, and there's just not that general large population. So while we can't be totally clear as to why they're missing, one may be because they were the first to bring Israel to idolatry. The second reason may be because their land territory changed from the southern Israel to this area where there's very, very little population. And the third reason that some people give is they believe the Antichrist will come from the tribe of Dan. There's certain verses in Genesis about Dan shall nip the heels of the horses, and some other verses that some people have suggested that the Antichrist comes from Dan, and that is why Dan is listed out of the genealogies. And of course, that's a theological, we could say, interpretation of that. And it may not be so at all, because if the Antichrist, for example, would come from an Islamic background, then there's no connection to Dan whatsoever. So there is a mystery to this, but there can be some answers to the question as to why Dan is missing in the 144,000 Jewish men that will be sealed with the seal of God during the 7-year tribulation period. So I wanted to take you up here to the area of Dan, right here at Tel Dan, where the old ancient gate is from the time of Abraham, and give you this little prophetic nugget. Hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, give it a thumbs up. We always want you to give us a thumbs up with every YouTube video, helping our algorithm for more people to see. Subscribe to our channel. Keep watching, because we have something to share with you. Thank you for joining me today from Israel. This is Perry Stone. I am so excited to be able to present to you and your family 2 of the most exciting audio teachings that I have done in many years. Will Jesus Return by 2033, and the special teaching, The Soon Closing Out of the Church Age. Now, I want to talk for a moment and tell you that I'm not predicting the return of Christ in 2033, but I am saying to you that it is the most pivotal transitional date that we have encountered in our lifetime and in modern history. And I'm going to show you why that 2033 is the most important prophetic date in the prophetic cycle. And we're going to talk about God's calendar and God's timing and the events surrounding where we are going in the distant future. I also want to present to you a very special teaching, the soon closing out of the church age. The church age is also known as the dispensation of the grace of God, and it will eventually come to a conclusion with Christ's return. Then the wrath of God is going to be globally released in what is called the Great Tribulation. Now, on this 2 audio CD series, you will discover details on how, why, and when this major prophetic transition will occur. Man, this is a very powerful message. It is filled with fascinating new insight, and it provides keys to understanding soon coming events. Now, you can now get both of these audio CD messages. There are 4 CDs, 4 hours of teaching for your love gift of $30 or more. We really need your help to keep Manifest on the air. The way that you order this special teaching is by going to perrystone.org and ordering online, or call 1-888-21-BREAD toll-free and order that way. Or you can also write me at Perry Stone, P.O. Box 3595, Cleveland, Tennessee 37320. Now, when you call or write, you have to request offer number PR-138, and it is the special brand new prophecy updates. We're hoping to hear from you, and we just pray that God will continue to bless you.
If you enjoyed this YouTube content, there's an important website you should know about: perrystone.org. Perrystone.org is an essential resource for the latest books, audiovisual presentations, and digital products from Perry Stone Ministries, resources that cover the same kinds of topics discussed in the program you just watched. Stop in and see all that's available at perrystone.org.